I'm Scott Alnoy. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. If you're watching this on the day that it releases, that means it is April 1st. That means it is hot. Easter is over. It is the end of Semana Santa. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means here in Nicaragua and what time of year you want to come visit Nicaragua, because April is a unique month and my dog is very excited about the tree next to me. So we're going to get to all of that right after the bump. Before we get started on today's topic, I just have a little thing I want to get off my chest that has nothing to do with anything on here, but a lot of you, especially people who are looking at possibly living abroad, working abroad, being digital nomads, doing a lot of different things. One of the things that I think people need to know, and you need to have someone actually say this who's from the industry and understands these things, because it's easy to maybe think this is true but not have some reference to go from and be like, it feels this way, but am I crazy? Am I the only one? So if you're in business, right? So a couple things. One is when you're starting a business, the first thing you need, there's 3 people you have to have when you start a business. If you don't have these 3 people, and of course you can be one of them, like you could be a lawyer, for example. If you don't have these 3 roles covered when you start your business, and I don't mean down the road, like, oh, we've been going for a few weeks, no, I mean before you become a business, when you start having those, like, we're thinking about starting a business, you got to have these 3 people before you start, not the day after, not a few minutes after, not the next day, before you start, or you're out of your mind, and that is your lawyer. You have to have your lawyer to tell you what you can do, what you can incorporate, how you should structure the business. You need them first and foremost. You need an accountant. This is the one that can wait the longest, but not very long. You got to have them before you incorporate so that they're part of every little thing you do and making sure you do every single thing right. You can't open that first bank account. You can't open your doors. You can't pay for the incorporation until you have that accountant. And the other is your CIO, the person who's going to head IT for you. This is the one that people think they can skip the most, and it really might be smart to have even before the lawyer, just because they can help you brainstorm on a really large scale amount of things that a lawyer also should help with. Really, those two should be like your team that you have before you even really put together your game plan as to how to start a business. Like, these are the things I'm thinking about doing. You always, and I don't care what you think, if you don't have that IT background, you're going to make so many mistakes. Same thing, if you don't have that lawyer, you're going to screw all kinds of things up unless you're an IT professional at a level that you can make CIO decisions, or you're a lawyer at a level where you can make consigliere decisions, chief counsel decisions. You only need a few minutes, probably, of each. It's not like you have to have them on staff full time. You got to have this knowledge base to know how to start a business. This is where businesses start failing before they even get going. You know, a business that hasn't had those people, that insight before they start spending money and incorporating, their thought processes, their CEO, their way that they do business is already out the window. They're not thinking in terms of business. They're not using common sense. They're not using basic knowledge. They're neither following the basic rules that everyone should know. Even children should know. These are the skills you have to make these decisions early, yet no one sits around and thinks about it. But if they did, they should know. And they're not, like, they could look this up. They could ask people. They could just think about it critically, and it should always come up with that answer. Maybe there's a few more people you need based on your business, but these people, every business needs. So any business that goes without those, you automatically have these gaps, and I've seen it. I've seen companies start up and they don't have these roles, and they have like major issues that they can't even begin to imagine. And they're often small at the beginning, but they just snowball as they start investing more and more based on bad decisions. And then their processes for making decisions are often remain bad. And so it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Hence why so many businesses fail. And a lot of you think about starting businesses here in Nicaragua, so the same rules apply. You don't need expensive lawyers. You don't need an expensive accountant. You don't need an expensive CIO, but you do need knowledgeable. You need at least 15, 30 minutes of a brilliant lawyer, of a brilliant accountant, of a brilliant CIO, or you're going to have giant gaps. Either you're going to spend too much money, be at risk, whatever. Okay, that's not my rant, but that was the first beat, a little bit of foundation. When you have a business, a really common thing today is to scare people or to play on people's existing fears about security in technology. Everyone hears these stories in the news of people who've been hacked, ransomware, whatever, phishing attacks, and the reaction is often, I'm going to go hire a security professional. So this can be wrong some of the time, and I would estimate that it's wrong at approximately, no, probably exactly 100% of the time. There's no such thing as a professional security person that works in your business. Does not exist. You'll find people who say, I'm a CISO, I'm a Chief Information Security Officer, I have this certification, the CISSP, and I have the Security Plus, and I have all those things are just scams 100% of the time. Your CEO and your CIO should both have the knowledge and common sense to know that security is something you bake into everything you do, especially in IT. There's no such thing as a CIO who isn't also your security person. There's no such thing as your systems administrator that isn't also your security person. They have to be secure at that level. And hiring someone who's separate and just does security is conceptually ridiculous. It means they don't understand the rest of the things that you do. They're not in the chain doing the thing. So it's like having a person, if they actually know security, and anyone who actually knows security wouldn't work in that role because these other roles pay 10 times as much and have always existed, and they actually get respect and they don't have to scam anyone. So this entire industry of getting people scared or playing on their fears and then coming in and going, we're going to protect you, you're so much in danger, blah, blah, blah. Your real IT people are going to come in and say, okay, here's your realistic danger for your business. Here's how we realistically protect against it. Here's how we do so. And it's always a part of IT. You're already doing it. Now, if you have a CIO and they're not competent, if you have a CEO that isn't competent enough to listen or hire the right CIO, if your CIO isn't competent enough to do the job that they're hired to do, be a CIO, then replace them. Period. End of story. No exceptions. 100% of the time. And this doesn't matter if you're a mom and pop business and you're hiring a person who advises you for 30 minutes a year. You're a foreign business that's just doing a little tiny shop here in Nicaragua, or you're a giant Fortune 100 who needs to oversee billions of dollars of work. It's all the same. The rules of business don't change, just the amount of it, the amount you have to spend, how much time you need, how complex it is. Being a small business, you will take minutes. So if you come to a real firm that does real IT, or just find a good, true IT professional, and you're running a small business, say maybe you make, engine parts, and you say, I make these engine parts. I'm really afraid of all these different things. What do I have to do to stay secure? Your IT is going to say, okay, well, let's look at your risk profile. Let's look at what the dangers are. Let's look at what you're worried about, what you should be worried about, how we protect against, what common things, and what are you doing? And it's going to be really simple. It's going to be really cheap. And it's going to be mostly common sense. It's going to be simple things, right? Stop sharing passwords. Stop avoiding doing updates. Don't hire people that aren't professional and aren't doing their jobs, right? Just use common sense. Yeah, it's more complex than that, but it's really fast. Small businesses, it's so easy. And a lot of it is just saying, you aren't actually at that much risk. We see constantly in the news people who get, ransomware, and such a business is being held ransom for $100 million. And what are they going to do? And every single competent IT professional in the world reads this and goes, how are people so easily duped by this news? The ransomware isn't what is costing them $100 million. It's the fact that their IT and their entire existing structure in the business didn't have backups. And no one wants to admit it. No one's taking responsibility. No one's saying, why did your IT not have backups? Why did your CEO allow your IT to be so incompetent? No one's holding them to task. They're talking about the ransomware. Yes, some malicious person got in and exposed the fact that they didn't have backups. Someone exposed that the CEO and the CIO and their team was not doing the most unbelievably basic job you can imagine. But other than really exposing the incompetence, possibly the corruption, possibly the theft of who knows what by the staff you're paying, the ransomware bit might as well be just a red herring. Yeah, technically it happened. Maybe. We don't even know that. For all we know, they did it themselves because they needed an excuse to distract people from the fact that they didn't have backups. Because if you have backups, ransomware is useless. Right? 99.9% of the times. There'll be an exception, but very, 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 very rare. In none of the cases you've ever heard about, none that have ever made the news, none that anyone has ever known about, it is always IT screwed up, and maybe a ransomware company exposed them. Maybe they lost their backups. Maybe their systems failed and they ransomwared themselves, or just lied about it to create a ransomware scare to avoid people questioning why they didn't have backups. Because suddenly when you have ransomware, people stop thinking about the fact that any competent business has always had really solid protection against ransomware. And no one says, how did they ransomware both your systems and your backups at the same time? They're disconnected, or they're not backups, right? Is it theoretically possible? Yes, a state-sponsored attack could pull that off. None of these are that. None of these claim to be that. They don't even try to make plausible excuses as to why IT didn't do their job. They just hope you ignore it because they say the word ransomware, they say the word hacker, they say phishing, they say security, and people lose their minds. And it's an easy way to social engineer the reader of the article, your investors, whoever, into tricking them into not evaluating the CEO, the CIO, and the IT staff, and instead just panicking emotionally. So it's actually, truly, in the US, it falls under federal hacking laws to present IT failures in this way, because they're using social engineering, which is considered hacking, as a way to manipulate people to ignoring their security duties. So tons and tons and tons of businesses will be approached by people who try to play on these fears. Oh, you have to have someone who's got a test that says they're secure. They have to do nothing but security. They have to be a professional security person. You have to have a professional security person on staff. You have to pay them outrageous amounts of money. What do? Nothing that you shouldn't have already had. And should you listen to them? Well, no, they're not the person you trusted to be your CIO. They're not the people who are doing your things. They don't know enough. Like, they're in the worst position to do security, and they're not in a job role that makes sense for security, but they are in a position to do sales. And so watch out, one, that they exist. Don't let anyone like that into your organization. If your CIO isn't secure, get a CIO who is. But if security isn't part of what you do, it would be much like you have a building manager who's like, we don't lock the outside doors. We don't know anything about locking doors. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to make the person who manages my facilities understand about locking doors. Instead, I'm going to hire a door locking professional. Now, they're going to report to the facilities guy, and they're going to lock the door, but they're not in charge of anything else. They don't know which doors we have. They don't know what we're trying to protect. They're not involved in the building, but they do lock the doors every day. Now, that makes it sound actually way more useful than it actually is. In IT, there's so many times that people are doing things that no one knows about or are very hard to document. If you're not doing security at all those different steps, just doing the right things all the time, following the best practices and using common sense, there's no way for an outside person, even a person who's full-time involved in the organization, to watch over all those things and make sure they follow behind doing secure things. Because security happens most importantly at the big decision levels, right? How do you approach passwords? How do you approach user training? How do you approach the design of your network? These aren't things that security professionals like CISOs and those things, they never do that stuff. They get brought in to put band-aids on things. None of it's real security. That's not how real security works in any organization. So the whole thing is a farce, but because it says security, it's easy to get CEOs who aren't that on top of things to react emotionally and fork out lots and lots of money to the exact people they should be scared of having in their organization, because these people are willing to go out and scam people to get high salaries to do nothing based on just made up fears. So I just wanted to get that as something, because so many of you are people who may invest in a business or maybe starting a business or thinking about starting a business. Those are good things to know. Who you got to have to start a business and things to be wary of, right? Don't let people like that get past your CIO. Why would a CEO ever get to talk to someone selling them on security services? Something fundamentally is wrong. That's what your IT department is there for, to evaluate those things and say, this is fake. Don't talk to these people. This is a scam. But if they get past the IT department, the CEO has one job: to say, whoa, I'm not the IT department. They have to evaluate this. I evaluated IT. They're doing their job, so let them do their job. If someone gets past that, that's how you scam the CEO. And a CEO who lets that happen has just voluntarily said, oh yeah, let the salespeople in. I don't know what I'm doing. Just figure out how to get into my wallet. It's an invitation to get into their wallet, and it works so much. This is a tried and true way to scam businesses. So I want to warn you guys, if you have questions about that, of course, get down. Happy to answer them. So this is April 1st, so happy April. Of course, this is the video for the 25th, but you're watching it on the 1st, which means Easter is over. So Semana Santa, the week leading up to Easter here in Nicaragua and in much of the Latin world, is a really big deal. In Nicaragua, it is by far the biggest holiday of the year. This is when you have big holiday meets, not a lot of obligations for the public. So unlike Christmas, which is also a big holiday, but not as big, with Christmas, you have all these things you're supposed to do, like go do this thing with family and do this thing with the trees and do this decorations. With Semana Santa, there's a whole lot more just you have time off to go drink and hang out at the beach. So the tradition here in Nicaragua Nicaragua is for everyone to get the time off of work, head out to the beach, and party for the entire week, which is really cool and fun. And people love to do. It's wild for us as foreigners who live here. It's not a big thing for us. Like, one, we don't get off of work for this because we work remotely. Two, we don't have any like traditions that make us want to do this. Like, it's all very strange for us. It's kind of like spring break, but a little bit later and combined with Easter. So it's all very, very weird for us. So it's not very likely that we want to participate. And what we tend to do is end up avoiding the beaches. And mostly we just hunker down in the house, not for safety reasons, just because it's wild crowds of people. The prices of everything goes up. The lines for everything get long. The beach is just mobbed with people. It's fun. There's lots of parties, lots of concerts. If you want to go to stuff, like, you can. Like, so many things happen on the week of Semana Santa. Like, you can go to live music 24 hours a day, it seems like. But everything is packed full of people, loud, and it's just, for most of us, it's exhausting. And we kind of feel like we're in the way. Like, they all want to do their thing. This is their tradition. So this is the time, the week of the year, that we really just avoid everything. Hunker down in the house, get some work done, relax, take it easy. And if you can, not order food online, that'd be best, because they run out of everything, right? Nothing gets cooked properly. Every kitchen is overworked. Every supplier is out of supplies. Even beer starts running out. Like it's tough. Stock up in the weeks before. Make sure you have enough food in the house. Cook at home. You can order, but just be aware. Things are going to take longer. They're not going to be cooked as well. It's just, we know this is routine. So that's what happened Semana Santa. I didn't go out to the beach to film for you guys. I kind of wanted to, but the one time I was out at the beach, everyone was like, it is so busy. We can't even get the car down the road. So we're not going to go. We're not going to do this. So gave up. But I did want to talk about then, after Semana Santa, what happens? Well, everyone kind of saves up and spends all their money and energy and free time at Semana Santa. Once it's done, the country kind of goes into recovery mode. And so for the next several weeks, people tend to be saving up money to pay their bills again, because they're worried about making rent next month. They want to recover from the unbelievable week of hangovers that they typically have. They've been out in the sun, so they've got some exposure. Everybody's just tired from that. There's just all these things. People need several weeks to recuperate. This overlaps with the month of April here in Nicaragua, which is the one month that stands out as hotter and less desirable as a time to come to Nicaragua than all the others. We always say there's 11 months, it's all the same to come here, but if there's one month to avoid, it is April, which is shocking, because if you look at my emails and messages coming to me, it seems to be the most popular month for you guys to want to come down. It's fine. Like, don't rearrange your schedules. People are like, what have I done? It's not that bad. It's just that during the month of April, we're still in the dry season. So we don't have the cooling rains yet. We're at the end of the dry season. So we're at our lowest ebb for water in the ground and everything else. Everything's dry and dusty. Like, I'm standing out in the yard already and it's very, very dusty. The grass is brown. Like, this is as not attractive as Nicaragua gets for the entire annual cycle. It's not like autumn in the United States where you have the beautiful leaves changing color. It's just really dry and has been dry, and everything's just holding out for that first rain to come. Now, technically, we did get rain like today, but it was like 5 minutes and super light. We've had maybe, I don't know, a quarter inch of rain over the last 6 months, and most of it's been in the last month. Not very much, but really soon there's going to be tons of rain. Everything will be flooded, and everything will be green in a few days. But for the month of April, you're still in this really dry season. And then you have generally a little bit of lack of wind, and it tends to get a little bit warmer. So everyone feels like it's a kind of an oppressive sitting heat that's very dry. And it's just for a really good time to not be here. The rainy season has this beautiful, refreshing rain. Most of the dry season has just beautiful weather that you can do, all your activities, not worry about getting rained out. And in April, you can still do those things. It just, the country kind of takes the month off, and a lot of the foreigners use April. If you can plan around it, it is the time that people choose to travel. It's a great time to go to Guatemala or someplace that's a little bit cooler, or to go to Colombia or someplace that's on, I guess not Colombia, but Ecuador, or something on the other side of the equator, so you're getting the opposite weather pattern, or to do your travels back to North America, for example, someplace that has really beautiful weather. April has beautiful weather all over the world, just not in Nicaragua and a lot of Central America. So we often say, if you're doing any planning, plan around April being the one time that, if you can, avoid the country. As far as traveling in general, coming up after April, you have the 6 months of rain. For a lot of people, that's when they want to travel because it's very refreshing and storms are cool in Central America. I love being here then, but it does disrupt travel a little bit. You don't want to be driving during those storms. You don't want to be out walking during those storms. It's mostly just in the afternoon, early evening. So it's not a huge deal. You can plan around it to quite some degree, but not completely, and it can disrupt. If you want to just jump from thing to thing really quickly, it can be really tough. During the rest of the season, technically, it's just the slightest bit cooler, but it doesn't have the rain. It's a dry season, so you get about 5 months of really nice dry season. That's the slightly busier season when it's just easier to travel around, and the average person prefers to go without rain than rain, but a lot of people prefer the rain, so it goes both ways. But April is the one time where it's just maybe plan around it if you can. But really importantly, it's a very small bit not as nice as the rest of the year. Don't make a big deal about it. Don't worry about it. But just be aware, especially if you're looking at living here full time and you're like, am I going to want to be there 12 months of the year? I don't think I do. I want to travel a little bit. There's a really good chance you're going to want to make April either just after Semana Santa or include Semana Santa. If you're like me and you don't want to participate in Semana Santa, you don't want to be in the way, that means that whole time, about 6 weeks, is the perfect time to go do some international travel maybe. Go spend some time in South America, go to Europe, go to Southeast Asia, go home and visit family wherever you're from. All those things work out perfectly at that time. Not that you can't do it others, it's just a little bit of a recommendation that once you get to know what it's like here between that really, really busy 1 to 2 weeks at the end of March and then this complete stoppage of everything in April, it makes sense to put it all together as a little time for yourself to take a break from Nicaragua if you're going to take a break. If you're not going to take a break, then, fine, you're here and it doesn't matter. It's very, very little different than the rest of the year, but we do notice it. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. The links are all over the place. Click on the link in the description below. It will take you right to it, and I really appreciate how much you guys volunteer there and help make this channel possible. As always, if you would share on social media, just post a link in Reddit or Facebook, something like that. Send it in an email or a text or something to some family and friends and let them know to join us here on the channel. I'm going to do my best to have a live show. We're going to get back to that. My schedule's mostly under control at this point on this coming Thursday, which will be, I'm going to struggle really hard. I think the 1st is a Monday, so the 2nd is a Tuesday. So the 4th, I think the 4th of April, we're going to try to do a live show in the evening. I will do my best to keep you guys up to date on that. Again, I miss doing those. Very glad to have a chance to do it again. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and I will see all of you tomorrow. And if you're on the right kind of device and have it in the right orientation, there should be 4 videos popping up on the screen if I've had a chance to get to them. And if you click on one of those, it tells the algorithm to keep promoting this channel.